Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. I'm your guest speaker for today. My name is Patrick Remo, and I will be presenting on the topic of on gender and labor. The title of my presentation is Ikot, the Agile Change Journey of Coming Out in the Workplace. When we think about gender and its presence and power in the workplace, there's a lot of intricacies, there's a lot of cultural, social, and even mental challenges and opportunities that can come up when you combine those two elements together. When you think about it, most of our waking hours is really spent at work. We spend 5 days in a week working with colleagues, working on projects and building relationships for 8 hours every day with people that we work with. So it's really critical that we understand the dynamics at play in the most crucial part of our careers. So before we get going in the presentation, I want to take this time to define some of the terms that you've seen on the title. And it's loosely defined, so it's not based out of a Merriam dictionary, but it's really just on how I want you to understand and put it into context of the story that I'm about to share. So the word ikot is actually just a repeated Filipino word, ikot. And ikot means revolving or turning around. And in the context of this presentation, it means evolving, transforming, and changing. The second word is agile. I'm sure you've heard this word before in different contexts, but as I said, in terms of the story that I'm about to share, I want you to use this word as a means to understand flexibility, the nimbleness, and especially around the iteration that someone has to go through in order to reach the final outcome. The third word or phrase that I am going to define here is the change journey. It refers to the iterative ebb and flow process that people go through when they are changing. And that could mean to different changes that you're going through your life. It could be a change in your personal life. It could be a change you're going through work, in your relationships, and everything that you do. So all those things are journeys in different scale and complexity. I want to start this presentation by sharing some information about me, my background, where I grew up, the family I grew up in, and what were some of the factors that I considered when I was at that point of trying to figure out who I truly am and can I do that? Can I really be truly authentic? And so let's do a Patrick 101. As I mentioned, my name is Patrick. I was born and raised in Makati, Philippines. I grew up Catholic and went to private Catholic school from preschool to university. And yes, you heard that right. Even up to my university, I went to the University of Santo Tomas. It was established in 1611, and it is considered the Pontifical and Royal Catholic University of the Philippines. The third bullet here is that I come from a political family. My mom's side, we have generations of politicians who have been in power in different parts of the Philippines. And so that leads me to the next bullet, which is that at the age of 16, I was actually an elected government official. So I served a 4-year term as a government official, working with the public, working with the city council to make sure that our youth are positioned for success and that they have the resources they need to get better with anything they want to do and to keep them busy during the summer season with some basketball or volleyball tournaments or some clean and green campaigns. I've been working in the corporate industry for the last 10 years in various industries. So I've worked in public and private sectors in Edmonton, and especially around the areas of human capital, change management, and design thinking. I'm also a community builder in Edmonton. Something that's really close to my heart is really building communities and engaging with the people around me. So when I moved to Edmonton, that was one of the key things I wanted to do, is to make sure that I take part in building the Edmonton as a community. So I volunteered and led committees for the last 6, 7 years when I started volunteering. I was part of the Edmonton Next Gen. I was part of the Canada 150 celebration. I led the Edmonton Municipal by-election campaign in the last like 5 years. And so there's a lot of opportunities there where I was able to really work with different people across the city. I stay active by playing competitive volleyball and CrossFit. I've played volleyball since I was like in grade 4, I think. And then since then, I've always played elementary, high school, and university volleyball. And CrossFit is something I've been doing for the last 8 years. And there was like a time there where I competed competitively as well. Last but not the least, to balance out my active and outdoor lifestyle, I am a big foodie. So I love food. I like checking out new restaurants. I'm a self-proclaimed donut connoisseur. I know that doesn't exist, but I do love trying out different donuts in different cities. And also I'm a coffee aficionado. So I love trying out different coffees. My preferred method is pour over. And so that's something I'm really just passionate about. So with that being said, those are the different information and facts that surrounds me and, makes me who I am. And so when you think about, the religion, when you think about family reputation, when you think about the things that I'm involved in, the people that I work with, coming out was really challenging, especially when I was in the Philippines, when our culture isn't necessarily at a point of full acceptance to the 2S LGBTQIA community, but it's more around the tolerance about that kind of gender expression. So as I mentioned, coming out wasn't an option, nor was it permitted. The family reputation, religion, and the status ruled over authenticity. And when I look back now, it was something that really, hurt me a bit, because I felt like most of my student life and most of my political career was about building relationships with people. It's about connecting at a level that I could understand their pains and really help them, go through their change journeys. And so it pains me to see that I wasn't as authentic as I was, because I couldn't really be myself. There were some repercussions, there were some consequences if I did come out to the people that I was leading at the time. And so fast forward to moving and immigrating to Canada. The decision to move to Canada was not taken lightly. There was a fear of starting anew, and walking into the unknown was just overwhelming and scary. I had my life cut out for me in the Philippines. I was, destined to run for office in the next couple of years. I was positioned to do so well in my corporate life. And that was really something hard to leave behind. I've built it through the years, and to just drop everything and move to a different country that I don't have anything built is something that was so scary for me. But I also knew deep in my heart I needed a fresh start. There was that feeling that if I don't do it now, if I don't take this opportunity to move to a different country and start anew, I don't know when I'll be able to really come out and be true to myself. At the same time, I was also still figuring out who I truly am. And the reason why I say that is because in the Philippines, there's a colloquial word for gay, which is called bakla. And the term bakla carried a stereotype. It carried a single story. It's someone who's flamboyant, male cross-dresser, and to some elders in my family could not amount to anything in life. And I'm sharing this as part of my story and my story alone, because obviously someone else who lived in the Philippines and immigrated in Canada would not have the same experience. So I just want to put a caveat to that in my story here. So what happened was, every time I think about, am I bakla, it's hard for me to really connect the two, because, I wasn't necessarily flamboyant. I didn't really cross-dress or wore dresses or anything. And, I was successful in school and in politics. So my question was, so I must not be gay then, right? Because growing up, there's always just that single story or this negative stereotype that I obviously, at that time, I don't think I fit in it, right? Like, Even if the words that you see on the screen may sound offensive now, I'm sharing this because I want you to feel the gravity of the words that I had to go through, the slurs that I had to endure when people were telling me that I'm bakla and all the negative things that came with it. So when I immigrated to Canada and saw gay men who dressed like me, talked like me, and not necessarily fit in that stereotype, it opened my eyes that there are different ways in which you can really be who you are. There's no single story. There's no one way of being, expressing your gender expression. So that was really a pivotal moment for me to get to a point where I understand who I am, and that feeling of being different, that feeling of not really attracted to women is what makes me gay. And regardless of how I dress, it's how I feel and what I chose to, how to express myself is really what defines that. So we now move on to thinking about what happens in our brain when we go through a certain change. As I mentioned, at that time, I knew I was gay. I knew it was something that I have to change the way I present myself or the way I talk to people. But what happens in our brains is, as David Rock explained here, neurons are activated and hormones are released as you seek to learn whether this new entity or a change that you're going through represents a chance for reward or a potential danger. And from what I've explained about myself, I'm a very ambitious person. I have so many plans in my career. I want to be able to make a difference in this world. And so for me to come out, I have to balance the threat and reward situation, especially in the workplace. Internally, I have accepted and embraced who I truly am. I am gay. I knew I had to change and live my truth, but I was still haunted by the stories I was told about what happens to gay people and how being gay can impact the respect people have of me, especially in the workplace. I don't want me being gay to get in the way of being seen as a sought after leader. I don't want them to question the quality of my work because I'm gay. And that may not be true, but the perception at that time for me, because of the background and the history that I had with being gay, just becomes a threat. So to better understand this agile journey of coming out and the emotional roller coaster of going through a transformational change, such as coming out and coming to terms with your reality, let's look at it through the ADKAR lens. ADKAR, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but this is probably the most popular methodology in the world of change management. The ADKAR is part of the ProSci methodology, which I am certified practitioner. And so it helps you assess an individual's status or where they're at in their change curve, right? With any change, you need to be aware what needs to change before you can even distinguish whether this is something you want to do. You need to know what's changing. What comes after that is the desire to change. And you ask that question, what's in it for me? I know what I need to change, but why do I need to change it? How does that benefit me? The knowledge comes after that, which is decay, where it talks about how can I change? What are some of the information? What are some of the know-how that allows you to really change something that you set your eyes to? The fourth one is A, which is ability. What skills do I need to have? You can have the knowledge to do certain things as part of your change, but if you don't have the ability or the capability to do it, then the change might not completely happen. And last but not the least, R, which is the reinforcement. How can I make this change stick? So many times we go through change, or we're so passionate about changing something in our lives or in our habits, but what happens sometimes, or in some cases, in most times, we revert back to our old ways, right? Like, we're able to change for this much, and then maybe for 2 weeks, we're able to stay in that diet or in that workout regimen that we have. but in 2 months, we're not able to sustain it. And so reinforcement really caps it all off, because it allows you not only to understand why you need to change, but it allows you to continue and basically have that habit second nature to you. So I want you to look at that lens as a guiding principle as we go through this change journey that I've been to. So I'm not going to name the company that I work for, because really it's irrelevant. It's really more about my experience as at that time, closeted gay person. And yeah, I'm so excited to take you on this journey. So workplace number 1, the term siya. So another Filipino word that I want to share with you. The term siya is a pronoun. In the Philippines, we don't have a gendered pronoun compared to in English language, you have he or she, him or her, they, them. We don't have those differentiations. So in the first workplace that I knew I was gay and I was thinking about coming out, I was testing it out, because even though I know the English language pretty well, I often switch pronouns. So in one sentence, even though I'm talking about the same person, I could be switching he and she and using both interchangeably in one story. So that helped me every time people ask me at work, like, oh, how was your weekend? And I want to talk about, oh, I went on a date. I wasn't ready to fully come out, so I would usually switch the pronouns to she instead of using he. And even when I unintentionally use the term he, people just assume that I was just interchangeably using it, because that's just how I talk, because of, growing up in the Philippines with no gendered pronouns. So at that time, I felt like I had to hide. I had to use the pronouns, and I didn't really have any other motivation to do anything outside of that. I felt like I was at the figuring out stage if this is something that is even going to be accepted. And again, I want to reiterate the fact that I was a goal-getter. I had so many plans for my career. And so that was a priority for me. So when we look at my ADKAR report card, the takeaways for me was I was aware what needed to change. I was aware I was gay. I was aware that that's a change I had to go through personally. I had the desire to come out and share my story. So that was there. I wanted to come out. That's why I shared stories about me dating, but I had no knowledge on how to come out in the workplace. It's something that, do I come out? Do straight people have to tell people that they're straight? Like at that time, and this is back in 2012, I wasn't sure how to navigate that. I didn't have a lot of knowledge or stories that people shared where I am able to really learn from. I also wasn't sure if I had the mental and emotional ability to go through that as I was building my career. I was so focused in just getting all the experience, the amazing projects at work, that living my true self and coming out was almost in the back burner of my priorities. And I also wouldn't have been able to sustain it. So now moving on to workplace number 2. That's so gay, and this is why language matters. I had a small coming out moment, so that was a progress for me. So as I said, this journey is not like a linear process, so you're going to see it as I move through this. But I had a small coming out moment with select few people. The company was visible about supporting Pride, but I also heard of homophobic remarks made by coworkers. And they often use a term that's so gay, that's so fag of you, and all those other terms that maybe was more of a joke, but it was always in the context of something that's derogatory. And so even though the company had Pride posters, they had part of the Pride parade, it's the people who I interacted with, my clients, or some of the people that I connect with on a day-to-day basis would make these remarks that made me feel like I'm at a place of, I think they're okay with it, but also I'm not sure. So I was living my authentic self only to a few select people, and I was very intentional who those people are. So the takeaways were I was aware what needed to change. I think the awareness was always there. I had a strong desire to come out until I heard homophobic remarks. So it was like a 50-50, as I said, right? Like you have a strong desire to come out because you feel like you're growing as a person and you want to build relationships with people. I want to be able to share sort of some of those dating stories with folks so I could get some, feedback or learnings and stuff like that. But I just felt like it wasn't something I could truly do, like in a grand scheme of things. I had some knowledge of where the company stood in terms of support for 2S LGBTQIA plus community, because as I said, they were pretty active with Pride and they're pretty visible about it. But I also knew some of the negative remarks about gay people. Mentally, I was capable of managing it or going through the change, but emotionally, I don't think I wasn't. I also wouldn't have been able to sustain it because there's a lot of ambiguity about my position at work and also in my personal life. I was going through some things that I just feel like if I go through this now, that would just be a lot for me to take on all at the same time. So I had the awareness, I had the desire, and I had the knowledge, which was great because we're hitting, the ADK, we're just missing the ability and the reinforcement, which at that time I didn't really have. So workplace number 3, now I feel like I'm going into this progression, right? Like we started with just being aware and being, having the desire to now having the awareness, the desire, and the knowledge. Now enter workplace number 3. We can't have Pride posts for Pride Month. Given the conservative background of our company and clients, anything about Pride make them uncomfortable. This was hard for me because in the previous company I worked for, I felt like it was almost there. I felt like I was able to really come out at some point, maybe just take some time. Maybe people are just using it for humor or force of habit, but they don't really mean it in a bad way. To now work for a company where I'm almost having to go back to the closet. I remember a coworker and I made a poster for Pride, and it just reflects sort of the nature of our business and how we can support Pride, and it was shut down immediately because it might make our clients uncomfortable. The term uncomfortable have been such a critical language or word that have been thrown around every time I tell my story. A lot of my colleagues and even mentors who are white would always say, well, it's not your responsibility to make people comfortable. If they're uncomfortable, whatever, that's their problem, right? And although there's truth to that, and I wish that was something that I could just embrace immediately, what made it hard is that I'm also trying to build my career. I'm trying to build trust. I'm trying to build rapport. And I could only imagine the horror and the setback I have to do if the people that I'm trying to build relationships with, the people that I'm trying to convince that I am ready for my next promotion might be uncomfortable when I come out. And that was just a risk I didn't want to take. So for that company, again, I was aware what needed to change. I had no desire to come out compared to the previous company. And because it felt like it was more of a threat to my career than a reward, I decided to keep it. I came out to like 3 people in the company, but I didn't really come out fully because, again, I've also heard of people who are gay, but are not able to come out for the same reason of fear, right? Given the lack of Pride visibility in the company, I knew I wouldn't be able to truly be myself, even if some people are okay with it. And last but not least, obviously, if you don't have any of those other ones, you won't be able to sustain it. So I felt like, again, I came back into the closet, and it was almost like a 2-step back from where I thought I was heading. And that just explains that this change journey is not linear. It's something that you have to really figure out every opportunity you get. So now we move on to the workplace number 4. And This is when I realized that the diversity of the stories matter, and so does mine. Pride support in being gay was embraced and celebrated in this company. And even though at first I was skeptical, I mean, can you blame me? Like I've been through different companies that have had different views or visibility about being gay in the workplace. And so I was skeptical, but I knew living my truth was important as an inspiring leader. I apologize for the typo there. As an inspiring leader and as a people champion. My work in change management and design thinking requires me to be able to really connect with people in a deeper level so I could understand and help them through their change. And I feel like if I wasn't being authentic and really living my true self, that would create some barrier for connection. So the takeaways from that company is pretty good, I would say, because I have the full ADKAR. I was aware, I had the desire, I was knowledgeable, I had the ability, and I was able to reinforce it. I was aware of what needed to change. I had the desire to come out and tell my story because I knew it was celebrated and embraced. You know, it goes back to that first couple of slides that I shared about threat and reward. I was at a point of evolution and transformation in my personal life, not just as a person, but as a person in a corporate environment, that I am now able to do this because I have a platform. You know, I have the voice and I have the opportunity to really inspire people to embrace who they truly are. Through conversations and resources at work, I also had a better understanding of what I need to do. What were the spaces that I could really share my voice? And how can I empower people, right? And that's pretty big for me as someone who puts people first and as a people champion. It's all about how do I make people feel empowered to be who they are so that they can reach whatever they want to achieve in their careers. By living my truth and sharing my story, I'm able to sustain this because now I'm able to surround myself who, regardless of what my gender expression or my sexuality is, they will support and accept me for who I truly am. To evolve is to change, and change is hard. It is something that we often underestimate before we go through it, but once we're in it, there's so many elements we need to consider. It's not a linear process, and that's okay, because life never is. You forge ahead, then sometimes you take 2 steps backwards after that, but you know that you can always choose to move forward again. It's you versus you. Changing oneself is tough. At the end of the day, you need to understand, why am I changing? Why now? What's in it for me if I change? And how will I go about in doing that? And you need to make yourself accountable to sustaining it. At the end of the day, you can ask your friends to help you maybe sustain some of your changes. Remind you need to go to the gym. I'll go with you if that helps you sustain it. But at the end of the day, you're the one responsible for your own reinforcement and sustainment. It can turn things around for you and others. The best part about going through evolution or transformation as a human being is that we learn so much from it when we go through a change. We get to create these stories, the emotions we go through, and the lessons we learn has the power to inspire that change is hard. It really is, but it's possible. Since then, since I've come out, since I've gone through that change journey, even if I had to take 2 steps back and a couple of steps forward, I feel like I've gotten to a point of being able to empower other people to embrace who they are and to really inspire them to forge ahead. Since then, I've been invited to speak in different events, speaker series at work, an alumni event in my university, and now doing this guest speaker lecture series for MacEwan. Despite the long Agile change journey of coming out, I'm here living my truth and taking the next journey and reaching my ambitious goals of putting people at the heart of designing impactful change journeys and life experiences. I now know that my success and my ambitions are not dependent on who I choose to love, but it's where I put my heart in and how I invest in those experiences that I can create with people. I'm going to leave everyone with this quote from one of my favorite books by Haruki Murakami. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. Thank you.